Should you use a dev shop to build your startup, whether it's an MVP or an iteration of your product? The short answer is no, you should not. The longer answer is it depends and it gets complicated. I'm creating this video because I am really tired of watching founders get scammed by dev shops. I'll just be straightforward. Now, before I continue, let me just say I fundamentally have no issues with dev shops. I understand their place in the startup ecosystem as far as companies need help in terms of development. And there are agencies out there, and I know individuals running these agencies and working with these agencies, these dev shops, if you will. I don't have an issue as long as they don't take advantage of founders. And to be straightforward, transparent, and direct, I've seen enough founders get taken advantage of where I believe the dev shops are being very opportunistic and predatory. Therefore, here's the video to explain how I think through. I think about bringing dev shop, and I've used dev shops before. I'm not a technical founder. I cannot code anything. At best, I can hack something that's super low code, or I can work some no code solutions to make it look like the startup is doing what it's supposed to. But I'm not technical. So I've used dev shops to create a successful startup that did end up getting acquired. I'm sharing from experience. Let me get into it. No, here's my argument. What happens is founders go, I've got an idea for an app, a solution. I got to build something, software. And they go to dev shop and they say, what do you think? And of course, the dev shop's going to say, fantastic idea. I think it's going to be funded. In fact, we could probably introduce you investors and et cetera, et cetera. And it's going to cost you $50,000. And they're going to say, well, we're going to take a $10,000 deposit when you're going to come up with the $40,000, et cetera. And I've had founders put down the deposit and then say, I have to go raise money for the rest of the funding for this. And I can't, it scares me. I get so concerned, especially when founders are taking money out of their retirement or taking out a line of credit, remortgaging their home and all that stuff. And that's all they have type thing. And they just, want to YOLO their money into something. Okay, but there's got to be a smarter way to do it. And what happens is you spend that money. Of course, they're going to tell you your stuff works because look at the incentive system. A dev shop wants you to build all the bells and whistles in your app, the kitchen sink, the granite counters, everything. You just name it, and that's how they make money. So they're going to agree to everything. They're not going to question. Most dev shops aren't going to question, do you really need this, et cetera, because your startup can fail and they don't care as long as they get paid. Therefore, there are things that you can do if you are going to use a dev shop. I'll explain in a moment. The other thing is you've used all your money and you spent your $50,000, $75,000, $150,000. What if you need changes? Then you need money to make more money. Like you have to be generating some revenue to pay for money for the iterations and the upgrades and the changes of features, because you're probably getting feedback. And so many founders take for granted. They say, oh, I'm going to make money anyway. I'm sure this is going to make money, or I'm going to raise investment. But then you spend all your money on something that people don't like or use, and you're not making any money whatsoever. Well, what's going to happen? You're going to have to find that money somewhere else. In the meantime, your startup or your app is becoming obsolete. Technology is moving fast, and you're learning all these things, and you end up regretting and pretty much end up in despair because you blew all your budget. And most of the time, it's not even going to be that good because you made mistakes. Dev shops are moving fast. I've been in situations where, we've created the MVP in one language, but then later on we should have done it in another language. And now we don't have the budget to, transfer it over. We have to build it again from scratch. You never know. Have you popped the hood? Do you even know what you're looking at? If you do pop the hood, I wouldn't. Therefore, I don't know if I'm getting a quality product or not. So you kind of have a crappy product to begin with, and you overpaid for that because dev shops have got overhead. They've got, buildings and different things, and the people who run it and investors, shareholders need to be making money. They've got middle management, they got administration, overhead, all that stuff. So yeah, you've overspent, you have an inferior product, and then what's going to happen anyways? You're going to go raise money, and you're going to have to rebuild it anyway. And most likely you're not going to be able to raise money because your product is inferior and you haven't gotten the traction to it. These are all the worst case scenarios. And I understand founders are optimistic and you're being told, build it and they will come, but it doesn't happen. Just be realistic about it. Hope for the best, but plan for the worst. These are the principles and the advice that I always give. So back to, what can you do? What should you do? Say you're not technical like me and you need a dev shop. I'm going to give you some tips for you to consider if you are going to use a dev shop. Ideally, you don't use a dev shop. Ideally, you hire a programmer that's going to be part of your team. If you can't bring on a CTO and they're not willing to come on for equity or whatever, you've got enough and you hire and you build something so small, so minimal, just one feature, and you come out with a project to generate value in the marketplace, maybe make some money and sell your product manually before you have to do that. But you're not burning your money on developing something that might or might not make money. You're validating it first and you're making money, and you're bringing on someone who's eventually going to continue to build something from that. And you just treat it like a little project, which is things that I have done as well. And it's worked out a lot better because now you got a team and all your money is going into development, all that good stuff. So ideally you would do that. Dev shops are very convenient. I get it. But in the long run, not advisable. An investor is not going to invest in you if you're relying on a dev shop either, because it's a risk. What happens if the dev shop closes or holds you over a barrel? I've seen founders completely lose their shirts because a dev shop promises one thing, they're not delivering, and then they say, I want my money back, and you're not going to get your money back. And then, or you're not happy with it and you want to, make adjustments, and they hold your code ransom. What do you do? Let me give you some tips. Here's how it works. So first, demand a lean MVP approach. What is a lean MVP approach? Go and learn it. It's all about iteration. It's about what is the minimum amount of investment money that I can spend to validate or invalidate my assumptions that this has value in the marketplace. What is the minimum I can spend to at least start generating some revenue type thing? And, I've gotten other videos coming out that you should be able to validate or invalidate what you plan on building in like a week. Get it out there as fast as possible. Don't move slow. So if you're going to work with a dev shop, ask them, do you know what a lean MVP is? Do you know what lean startup approach methodology is? And if they don't know, they can't repeat it to you after you've learned about it, then they're not the dev shop for you, because these dev shops are designed just to get a big chunk of money, put some programmers on it, build software, probably for a big company that's got budgets and that can throw their weight around, and they just need a little bit of help. They don't want to hire their own software team, even though they could. That's great. But as a startup founder, you must demand a lean MVP approach. That's how I test dev shops. I listen to their methodology. And if they're all about responsible development, they may say to you, yeah, we could build this from scratch, but guess what? We can also get this thing off the shelf. It's a widget. You pop it into your website, or it's a service that you can then connect in via a Zap, APIs, or you can do something that way. And let's test it out first, or use stuff that's already out there and do like a Wizard of Oz MVP where everything's kind of put together behind the curtain and they all interact, but you don't know that. They don't know that you're pulling all the levers on different software solutions, et cetera. That's what we do all the time. So instead of custom code, do something that's either low code or, dare I say, no code, and figure out how to do that. If your dev shop is not willing to work with you on that, they are not the dev shop for you. I'm just being straightforward and direct. Next, paid milestones. So separate out your budget and divide in milestones. And let's say you got $25,000. Deploy it in $5,000 chunks in 5 stages and say, here's the next milestone. I'm going to put $5,000 in. What can I get for $5,000 to validate or invalidate my idea? And they may say, oh, a great dev shop. And I know then if you want recommendations, let me know. I know dev shops that'll say, well, let's build just a landing page and let's generate some traffic and put out some AdWords and see if we can get some early commitments, and we can test whether your unique value proposition is even okay in the marketplace, right? Just test, validate your ideas. And so paid milestones. So separate it out and hold them accountable and say, if I can't validate my set of assumptions after this, my first $5,000, you're not going to get my next $5,000, right? And then they will want to help you get to the point where they'll validate and they'll collaborate with you, kind of like a way a technical co-founder is supposed to collaborate with you. So break it up, pay in milestones. Do not pay big chunks. They would love that, obviously, but I've seen situations where dev shops and agencies, they get access to a big balloon payment of capital up front. They're not so efficient, after the fact. So if they have to start and they have to earn their budget a little bit at a time based on milestones, that's the way you want to do it. Next, get a lean advisor. So triangulate with a lean advisor. This is a startup advisor that understands lean startup process and can work with you and say, all right, what are you planning on building? How can you break this up in a lean MVP approach so you're not wrestling with your dev shop? You can triangulate. They're kind of sitting in your corner, almost like an advocate or a lawyer. Now, the best dev shops prefer to work with people like me. So I'll talk with, the dev shop that I use, and they'll say, Ed, actually, we want you involved because we can't tell if they validate or invalidate their idea. We don't have the wherewithal or the time or the budget to go into that. So if you can let us know, yep, this is the test, or we'll work with you and let's triangulate and let's build a little team. Let's build a little tripod for your startup and let's use the money correctly. I love working with dev shops that way. So get a lean advisor, someone who can advise you on the milestones and the steps and put it together. And there are a lot of great, like other founders who've done it, ask them about the lean approach and say, would you be willing to advise me on how to do my startup and build my MVP using a lean methodology? They're out there and they'll help you, right? It's what we do at startups.com. We're always advising on this stuff. Next, involve a future CTO. Here's another power move that you can do. Say you've got a CTO and they're working at, Amazon or Facebook. They're working at one of the Mang companies. Sorry, at Meta. Although I guess they're going to question their approach anyway. But let's just say you got someone who's working now for Elon Musk since he bought Twitter and, coding away and working hard like Elon Musk wants you to do. And they say, yeah, I'd love to jump ship once you get funding and all that stuff. Love your idea, collaborating, you're friends with them, they're working together. Well, involve them, right? And then what happens is say, can you just oversee? Can you just advise me, kind of like the lean advisor? Can you look into the code repository and just go under the hood and have access to everything? Because that way, if you do get to the place, when you do get to the place where you're funded and that person can quit working for Twitter and jump over and say, okay, I'm going to do it. They've been involved and they're familiar with the code base. They're familiar with the product. And most likely they've given you some advice on what coding language to use, which environment that you want to be operating in, and they can just pick it up and they can jump in. Even bring them on part-time. Say you got some money and say, hey, this is what I did, right? And it's what I do right now. I've got, people who do that. And I say, hey, can you just pop in and take a look and do this quick change? Or can you make sure that we're doing it right? And it's been amazing. And they don't even have to be on full-time. They can be a fractional CTO for the longest time. And guess what? If you've got, someone who's a lead engineer at Twitter and you can tell investors, as soon as we get funded, they're going to jump ship. Here's their agreement. They've been working with me for the past year and all this stuff. That's incredibly valuable and a de-risked investment in the investor's mind. Of course, they're going to have confidence that you can pull it off technically, especially if you're not a technical co-founder. Finally, always get a second opinion. Always get a second opinion. This is what we're here for. I like to say at startups.com, not to toot our own horn, but we are agnostic to the advice that we give. We don't own a percentage of the startups. We're not motivated to steer the startup in, one way or another way. There's no incentive for me to give advice tilted one way or another, I'll just lay out the options. I'll say, I've seen this deal before. This is what I do with investment term sheets. You know, someone says, oh, I got this, you know, set of terms from the investor and everything. I'm not compromised, if you will, because I got no skin in the game that way. I just say, well, here's some things you want to look at, and this is what I see. And, you know, these terms, in my opinion, are fall within the range of what's out there, and these terms no, and different things like that. So I have no bias towards one way to go one way or the other, and that's what a good second opinion. So it's an unbiased yet informed second opinion. And that's the same reason that people have like non-voting board members, like external board members. There's observers, they're subject matter experts that can advise the board on how to vote, because they don't have, you know, they don't have the same fiduciary responsibility, and therefore they can give unbiased advice when it comes to decisions at a startup board level. So there you have the ways that I would use a dev shop if I had to. But the real answer is, if you don't have to, don't use dev shop. But most of the times, non-technical founders, and it is possible. Like I said, I have used a dev shop to launch my MVP, and that startup has gone off and, you know, done really well and been acquired. So I'm not saying it doesn't work, but if you are going to do it and you want to make it work, follow these steps. Demand a lean MVP approach, pay milestones, get a lean advisor, involve your future CTO if available, and always get a second opinion. There you have it. Join us at startups.com. We're talking about these topics, you know, every single day. Startups.com. We are an online community-based accelerator of founders accelerating other founders. I like to say we're all for the 99% of founders that don't get into, you know, these other great startup accelerators, and I recommend them all. Most of them, you know, the good ones. And then being a founder is pretty lonely. So we get together, we do workshops, and we have groups, and you know, we advise each other. There's peer advisor, all that stuff. So if you're interested, come check out startups.com. In the meantime, if you have any questions or comments, love getting the feedback all the time. It's been really helpful. All these videos come from my advisory interactions with founders anyway. And so I'm never going to do a video unless I know it's going to be useful to a founder out there. So your feedback is tremendously appreciated. You're already part of the community. You're already hanging out with me on YouTube and LinkedIn and other places. Really appreciate that support in doing that. I will see you in the next video.